Hello and welcome to the Juan podcast. If you're enjoying the show, consider signing up for the Patreon. There you get ad-free content, early access, exclusive episodes, and monthly supporter hangouts. You can find it at patreon.com/the Juan podcast. If you don't like the subscription-based models, there are other ways of supporting the show that are linked in the description. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy this episode.
They said it was forbidden. They said it was dangerous. They were right. Introducing the paranoid American Homunculus Owner's Manual. Dive into the arcane, into the hidden corners of the occult. This isn't just a comic. It's a hidden tome of supernatural power. All original artwork illustrating the groundbreaking research of Juan Ayala, one of the only living homunculologists of our time. Learn how to summon your own homunculus, an enigma wrapped in the fabric of reality itself, their power at your fingertips, their existence, your secret. Explore the mysteries of the Aristotelian, the spiritual, the Paracelsian, the Crowleyan homunculus, ancient knowledge lost to time, now unearthed in this forbidden tale. This comic book holds truths not meant for the light of day, knowledge that was buried, feared, and shunned. Are you ready to uncover the hidden? The Paranoid American Homunculus Owner's Manual, not for the faint of heart. Available now from Paranoid American. Get your copy at tjojp.com or paranoidamerican.com today.
Welcome to the Juan on Juan podcast with your host, Juan Ayala.
And think of really like if Geronimo, as recent as a figure is in history to us as Geronimo, and in reality, we can't possibly think Geronimo was the most magical person or the most magical artifact. So if the skull of Geronimo retained any power, what other kind of power is being retained out there? Like what other kind of animals? That's where I think of things like Game of Thrones, where you see down in their crypt, they have a dragon skull. If you had Geronimo's skull and somebody else could have a dragon skull, like when people say, oh, I wonder what's under the Vatican, I wonder the books. What if it's not books? What if it's a dragon skull and it's something so much bigger than an idea of knowledge that we could obtain? I don't know if anyone out there has taken in the Avatar movies, but I think it's so interesting when we talk about things like a dream or even melanin or virgin's blood or these kind of things. They're draining it's almost the pineal gland of a whale in this. That's the highest, like higher than the tree of life that they wanted to mine in the first one, the pineal gland of the whale, because their philosophy center and their music center and their language center was way bigger than the avatars on this island. And humans were using it to stay young. And so it's like, we know they study chrome on rabbits. We know they do it on turtles. Here's this thing on whales. So I just wonder, it's like the levels of things I feel like they know that we don't know and that they keep from us.
Welcome back to another episode of the Juan podcast. I'm your host as always. Remember to follow the show on social media at the Juan podcast on pretty much any platform. tjojp.com is the website. Patreon.com/the Juan podcast. YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. Make sure to click the links below. And today we are joined by returning guest and friend of the show, Chaney from Project Chaney. What's up, Chaney?
Hey, Juan, how are ya?
Word on the street
Excited
is
to be back.
Word on the street is you're a clone. Is that true?
I am not that I know of, but would a clone know they were a clone?
That's a good question, right? I mean, isn't that what a clone would say though, if they were confronted for being a clone?
I would have all the information up to the point of swapping places with the original Chaney. So,
Hold on.
like, and if you were going to have a clone army, why would you ever tell the clones they're clones?
Illuminati confirmed.
Well, I mean, what is it? Ugh. Star Wars: Attack of the Clones. They all know they're clones, right? Do they?
I don't know.
Oh man, this is
But
interesting.
Like Multiplicity, all of them know they're a different one of the dude. But if I'm the lesser Chaney, like if it's a copy of a copy of a copy, I'm the lesser version of Chaney now. But it's like everybody hates. Did you watch the Black Mirror, where it's like everybody
Which episode?
hates the first one of? Was it June? Was that her name? Everybody hates June. Judy.
Jude.
Ellen.
Yeah, I know what
I
you're
don't
talking
remember her
about.
name. Everybody hates whatever that broady's name is. But yeah.
How creepy was that? Like the concepts in that show, right? So let's see here.
All of them. Every Black Mirror episode.
Did the clones know what they were doing during Order 66? Let's see here. I don't know if they know that they're clones. Can clones tell each other apart? Anyways, I don't know. I mean, somebody would have to answer that. But were they aware that they were clones? How do clones recognize each other? Clone troopers eventually learn how to read individuals by slight differences in facial and behavioral quirks. So apparently it's a thing. They were able to tell each other apart.
Then it's not real. Because eventually, even if there was like 10 versions of me that were all made at the same time, from that point on, they would develop their own quirks and personality traits.
Well, have you seen They Clone Tyrone yet?
No, I put it on and it was in there. It was on in my periphery, but I don't feel like I took any of it in.
You watched it? Like you sat down and watched it though?
It was on. I was sitting, but I didn't. I must have played on my phone or made a meme or something.
Because they implant the memories, Chaney, with the lights. When they're laying on the table, they're swapping the new one out. So maybe they swapped you out, put you on the table, did the lights, and then you're good to go. You know what I mean? So I don't know. And here we are with the maybe clone Chaney or not. You want to plug your stuff for the people?
If anyone wants to find anything, they can go to projectchaney.com. I'm everywhere you find your podcast. If you are on YouTube, I have 3 episodes up, but I'm planning on getting a lot more video episodes. That's season 2. And they can go to Chaney_in_Wonderland on Instagram is where I do most of my shit posting. Otherwise, it's Project Chaney everywhere.
Yeah, you do a lot of shit posting, Chaney. And speaking of shit posting, I posted about, speaking about clones and speaking about artificial things. I posted this thing about pigeons not being real, and I had an alarmingly a surprisingly large amount of people that hit me up telling me about how they've had experiences with baby pigeons. Now, not all pigeons are fake. I'm sure there's some real ones sprinkled in there. But, I mean, as of the most recent thing I saw was on Joe Rogan, there was a lady on there talking about how they had genetically altered pigeons. I mean, this is an actual thing. Now, if they're androids or not, that's a whole different debate. But the CIA has used pigeons before for spying on people. I mean, that's mainstream history if you want to believe that. But as of recently, they found they called it the House of Horrors. Now, we can't say a lot because of YouTube, but there was genetically modified animals in there to spread a certain type of that we all are very familiar with. So that's just in California that they found that, right? This House of Horrors with a whole bunch of stuff in it. Now, let's take that microcosm and expand it outwards, right? And the military industrial complex and what they're maybe doing, and with movies like They Clone Tyrone, what are they planting in the subconscious of the masses to start to take in? I mean, recently they also talked about the aliens that are the ones that are responsible for the cow mutilations and the abductions, well, that supposedly there were lab grown man-made entities, but that there are some extraterrestrial entities. And also I know you just recently posted about Lamb, and I've been talking about Lamb recently, and the idea that now the whole conspiracy community is talking about how all aliens are a psyop and they're all fake and gay and they're all made up. But when I was growing up as a kid, aliens were very real and Area 51 was a real thing and it wasn't a government psyop. But from 1947 on, Chaney, because Grant attributes and they take responsibility, right? He says that Crowley takes responsibility for the modern UFO age. This is something he wrote about in the Mob Zone. But what about all the UFO sightings and extraterrestrials before 1947? Were those all a government psyop? Were those all fake and gay? Like, what was going on there? Because I think that this phenomenon goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years, if we want to talk about, right, the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita and all these different texts that talk about these floating ships and all these. I mean, that wasn't a government psyop back then, right?
I find that most of the time that people are just blanketly like, this thing's fake, where it's just like the whole thing's fake. They've done no research on the thing and it's an easy, like, you don't know how many people that are like, fake, it's just a psyop. And I'm like, well, you've done no research on it then, because I have buddies that have even done more than me, and it's 100% real, and they've been researching it a whole long time. So this is what I find with a whole bunch of this magic stuff and occult stuff. They put it in these fictional movies, so it goes into that spot in their head where all of it's all not real. So like the birds aren't real. If you can go get a drone from Walgreens and you can fly that, and that's the technology you can buy for $10 from Walgreens. The idea that the government, bare minimum, has 50-year advancement on that. Bare minimum, probably 100. So there's no way, any way you could think of as a little kid to spy, the government's thought of that in tenfold. There's bugs that spy on you. There's birds, there's dogs, there's humans. Like, I don't think there's pandas. There's panda diplomacy. They have pandas that come into your parks with men in suits.
the Chinese bear that people were talking about. Let's look it up here. What do you think? Do you think that was?
It's interesting to me. I just have to add, because today the government, because they spread the propaganda to us, so we settle in that it's a real thing. So they're like, plague, 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 plague. Here comes corona. Like ding, 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 and they do these things. Aliens, 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 aliens. Here comes their ships. I'm more of an interdimensional person, where I think they're opening some sort of wormholes or something. But today there's a new like virus X. And this new thing, X, and so we have this symbolism that they keep marking us with, no pun intended. So then you got like Elon with X, and you brought up the bird. So I thought, isn't that funny? Like X took over the Twitter bird, which was like the mockingbird, and like the bird, Elon even posted at one point, birds aren't real. So then it's like,
wait, did he really?
Yes. Right after he took over Twitter, like one of the things once he was like, oh, I'm going to rebrand this. He already knew the brand, no pun intended, the brand. I'm going to rebrand this. So I just thought, will the next be a bird, since X over the bird of Twitter? Like, will we get this avian virus?
I remember seeing this article a while back about an interdimensional from Skinwalker Ranch, right? I mean, talking about fake psyops and all these things. And you have that show of Skinwalker Ranch, and I remember as a kid watching these shows on the Bermuda Triangle, or any Bigfoot show, or any cryptid show, where I went, man, this is gonna be the one where they reveal it. And I go, but then I thought to myself, I go, if they revealed like a Bigfoot sighting on this show, wouldn't have it already made the news? If it was like a real big, like the Treasure of Oak Island, that show just went on, and every single episode would be like, oh, this is the episode. They're gonna find something. They kept just reeling you in. And I would keep coming back to it. I'd keep watching it over and over and over again. Like, you just don't ever learn, right? And yeah, but this I did see that they're prepping a new, I think, vaccine for this new I forgot what they referred to it as, but I did see something. I don't know, maybe it was you that posted it, and I might have seen it from your post. But this new that they're prepping us for, the new thing is what they called it, and I find that very interesting because maybe perhaps they I would like an interdimensional pandemic. I think that would be cool if there was one. I mean, that's a very bad thing to say, but what a cool concept. Like something like out of like something out of The Thing, right? Where it's like it lay dormant for so many years and then you break it out of there and it's like, yo, what's gonna happen? You know what I mean? Like, is it gonna turn you into, can it, we're in a room full of people, we don't know who has it, right? And then all of a sudden it catches you by yourself, his face opens up, swallows you up, you're done, but then it morphs into you. And hey, where'd Joe go? Where'd Chaney go? She disappeared. Is this the Thing Chaney or is this the real Chaney? Well, we don't know, right? So no one's leaving this room until we figure out who the real Chaney is, right? So it's like that concept, right? It's been in our subconscious. And last time you and I got together, we did the episode of the Sorcerers of the Subconscious, which the subconscious is a very powerful thing when it comes to the occult, right? The ego is a thing, the subconscious, and the idea of interdimensionalism, the mundus imaginalis, where I still don't know if it's an individual dimension that sprouts forth from your imagination or if it's the collective, right? So the idea being that there's this autonomous world that comes forth from your imagination, a mage nation, right? Imagination. Yeah. And are we all contributing to that alternate dimension? Or is it only to each person has their own alternate dimension? You know what I'm saying? Like, do I have my own mundus imaginalis and then Chaney has her own mundus, and then maybe they interact with each other, right? And sometimes mine bleeds into yours, because I can't see the fake lizard people at the back of the plane, but she could. That was her mundus imaginalis sprouting
I don't know.
forth.
I think that bitch is not real. I would have screamed back at her, or she'd be like, "That motherfucker is not real," and I'd be like, "She is not real."
Yeah, that was all, because I've seen other videos pop up too. But my favorite videos are the ones where it's like something similar, but it's in a different language because they put up subtitles, and I go, you could literally put anything up on those subtitles.
I know. I could have been like, "That bitch ate my peanuts."
Yeah. And like, it was a Chinese one, I think, that was talking about the people, the flight attendants not being real or something like that. And they were putting it on the subtitles, but it's like, you could put whatever. Like, I love when they put like a video of Putin or somebody talking.
Yeah, doing a speech.
And then they put like the America must go down or something. Or I'm like, how do we know? Can we even trust that this is now, especially right with the deep fakes and all this stuff? Like, can we even trust these? Because the AI has gotten pretty good at emulating. It might not be spot on, but it's pretty good at emulating somewhat these people. You have the AI Joe Rogan podcast experience, I think it is, where it's a full podcast, but it's AI Rogan. And it's kind of clunky.
Know it's real.
It's kind of clunky. I mean, you can tell, but
it's like you were saying, if like your space that you can think and mine, I got to think there's other realms. I don't know how many, but the government knows there's other realms. You can look it up in different like CIA documents. And then I believe with programs that we see on shows like Stranger Things, but we know that's all real too, that they use children to go in astral travel so that they can listen to conversations. They use different people to spy. So I think they could send those people into other realms, and the benefit of using children would be they couldn't be biased and they would give you all the information that you asked. But the downfall maybe of using children was that they had no control of what they didn't bring back with them. And so I think there could be things maybe loosen this realm if we get into the idea, because people always talk about Bigfoot and things, but nobody has a reality of like Mothra or Godzilla and like the ocean being so deep. And like, who knows what a child's imagination could create. Like if
Yeah.
the first rule of alchemy is mentalism, if everything's mental, none of the other rules apply.
Mm-hmm.
None of the other rules apply. They're just there to fill the void of an ego. If the first rule is mentalism, nothing else matters. There's no other rules.
But so this is something that a lot of people, right, that I've caught slack for, quote unquote, about taking some things too literally, right? And obviously there's, according to Manly PL, there's 7 different ways of interpreting things, right? The historical is the lowest of those. And when it comes to alchemy, which we might talk about here in a little bit, the idea of it is a physical thing, how much it is a psychological thing, how much it is a metaphysical thing. Like, you know, it's like it exists on different planes of existence. And now you touch on a very interesting concept. Because it is mental, does it make it real? Is there ways of drawing that down? You know, I'm trying to word this correctly. Like, because, you know,
What's real is just 51% of the room seeing it.
But, Chaney, if Bigfoot
even if
is
it's
real,
money.
If Bigfoot is real, where are the good pictures of Bigfoot?
But what if there was something like there's a bunch of ancient cultures all over the world that won't even allow you to take their picture. All over the world because they think it'll steal something from you. There's also a whole bunch of things you can look into about magic mirrors and mercury mirrors and silver on the back of mirrors. And now we have plastic on the back of glass. There used to be deities that maybe those magic mirrors, they could not be visible in. And so I think now we would never know because they've destroyed any of the technology that it's different technology than we think of now. Like it didn't need all the wires and all the things. But if the first rule is belief, maybe we all believed instead of a fake monetary system that these crystal balls would talk to each other. How much of the collective until it becomes a real thing? So everybody, it's like we shouldn't take things literally, but everything that everyone's going on is literature. It's literal. It's literal. So it's just like if we don't take it by what it says, then we can discuss until the cows comes home what they meant. And that's the philosophy of it all. But even in the philosophy, we have to rely on our tools of discernment personally somewhere that I'm not reading bullshit. You're not saying bullshit. I'm not watching bullshit. And what might be bullshit today could be totally true tomorrow and then bullshit again the day after.
Yeah.
It's like, so to me, it's still all mental. It's all totally what I think. I can heal myself with my brain. I can make myself sick with my brain. I believe I could probably move objects with my brain. I've done enough different meditations and psychedelics that I know I've spoken to people without my mouth. I know I've heard without my ears. I've seen without my eyes. So it's like, I know there's your heart and I know there's your gut, where people talk are your chakras and these different things. But I think it's all starts here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, speaking of cultures, right? There's a lot of cultures that have the dot there. I mean, it's the ancient Egyptians had was it 2 snakes? Or there was 2? I know there was 2 things. There was a cobra and something else. But yeah, the idea of whenever I have like really vivid dreams, I think about because usually in the dream there's a person that I know, and I wonder if that person saw me in their dreams, if I interacted with them, because I've been sober. Because whenever I smoke, I don't remember my dreams. So I've been sober for a while now, and usually like that week after you quit, your dreams come back. It's like it just hits you like a bag of potatoes, and you're just like, whoa, that was a crazy dream. And I often wonder, I go, did the other person see me, right, in this other realm? Because I've been reading a lot of Kenneth Grant lately, and they talk about how the deep sleep state is this pretty much different dimension. And what you were saying with the mirrors, that these entities might not they can't be seen with certain materials, which we know materials are important, right? When they're building monuments and building buildings and doing all these different things. Well, in a ceremonial setting, especially, materials are important. Well, if we extrapolate that even further, the idea that these entities, for example, the Cthulhu mythos, the great old ones, well, they seem grotesque to you, and I'm looking at it from a Typhonian point of view, okay? They seem horrific and grotesque to you in this waking state. So whenever you witness Cthulhu, you see him as this crazy monster, but in your deep sleep state, you might see him as something else. Now, all of these entities seem demonic in nature, no matter how you put it. So I don't know what a pretty Cthulhu would look like in a deep sleep, alternate dimension mobs, right? He's like fucking Nick Cage, just like
yeah, he's a total vixen, like black hair.
Nick Cage, like fucking just like yeah, like who knows, right? I mean. But again, this is the literature that we're reading about these things, and we're taking these people's words for it. Although it might be, again, emphasizing on the darker aspect of it, because that's what they were really into. But yeah, I think that there is something to that. Right? Essentially, it's altered states of consciousness, because the dream is really it's a funny one, because you felt like you were there, but you weren't really there. Or were you? You know what I mean? Like,
or is it even more real than here?
Well, I know people who they tell me that they astral project and they do shenanigans in the astral realm, and they say it sucks when they get back because they can do all this stuff. It's like almost like you're in the game, right?
Yeah.
I've never gotten to that point of being able to control my dreams.
I have a friend who's working on walking through walls right now in her dream.
I thought you meant in real life.
No, well, your dream state is your real life, that you get so good at your dream state that they tell you to make something in the real world, the quote unquote real world, to do something in this time and space, so that like every time I walk through a doorway, you remind yourself that you're not dreaming. Or that's why some people have a dream totem or something they can, like a watch, because supposedly the time won't show in your dream. But I have somebody that they say to dream map, because the people you meet in your dream, you can learn about them and you can know details about their lives, and you can map in your dream, like the convenience store will always be in the same reference to your grandmother's, and your grandmother's will always be in the same reference to, like, your house will always be the same. If you draw it, it might be backward. But yeah, the dream mapping. I'm not a great dreamer. It's not my superpower. I am a pothead, and I have quit for periods of time specifically for my dreams, and it didn't really help. But nicotine patches induce my dreams like crazy, where I can become immediately like a lucid dreamer, and I know I'm immediately lucid in my head.
So the patches that give you nicotine?
Yeah, like, but I would they tell you to put them on in the morning, like if you're a cigarette smoker, to put them on in the morning, and then you throughout the day, and then you tear it off before bed. I am a weirdo, because they said it would give you weird dreams. So I was like, cool, I'm going to put this on right before bed. And it really did.
What if that's the secret, Chaney? Right? Like the silica packets. Don't eat the silica packets. And you seen that meme where he takes and he breaks out of the matrix. Like, oh, welcome back. It was like, you've done it or whatever. I was like, what if that's the secret? You know, like, where do you put it on your body? Do you put it behind your neck or something?
You have to change spots, because it's weird on your, like, you know how sticky sometimes too long on your skin will irritate your skin?
Yeah.
And plus it's nicotine going in there. So I imagine it's,
so what if I put 2 on my nipples before going to sleep?
That's how I know you'll be milking, like you'll wake up and people will be sucking your teats, like, for cigarette drags.
What if that's the secret? Like, what if all these ascended masters were just like, no, bro, the secret of the Philosopher's Stone is 2 nicotine patches straight to the nips. And
well, I wonder if it was chewing tobacco leaves, because they'd smoke peace pipes. So if you look into all these ancient tribes that they would sit at night, and like, what if they just threw a ton of tobacco and sat around the fire and then inhaled the smoke? Maybe the people that were sleeping are inhaling the smoke, and they might have had weird dreams from the tobacco.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. And speaking of dreams, I recently had on Stephen A. Ross, and I got some books from him today, and we talked about dreams actually, and he sent me his book, A Grand Design of Dreams, and he's he's an interesting individual because he he has lived his life, and I did an episode of him, so that'll be out before this, but he's lived a majority of his life through following his dreams. So you'd have a dream about something, wake up, and then follow whatever his dream told him, and he lived a really interesting life that way. So, and I haven't read the book yet, but apparently it's about teaching, telling. I don't know what it's about, but it's about, he's got some dream stuff in here. The dream, I think it was like a dream journal of his. Not sure. I'll have to check that out. But again, a grand design of dreams. Shout out to Stephen A. Ross. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Let me make sure my dog is inside.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, it's all good.
How to let your familiar back into the house?
No, they were already in, but I kept hearing something past my earphones, and I'm like, is everything good? Is everything all right? Like, they were giving me anxiety.
So this idea of, again, following your dreams, quite literally, not just figuratively, where they tell you, right? They've always told us, what do you want to be when you grow up? Make your dreams come true. Is that like that subconscious programming of like, if you're able, because you have people who talk a lot of shit, that they talk about how they figured out the matrix, they figured out how to do stuff in this reality. And geez, let me turn off my notifications on here, because I just switched my profiles on Google Chrome and I just had a notification go off, which I never have that. This is so embarrassing. Turn off all notifications.
I didn't hear it.
It'll pick it up on my roadcaster on my end. Yeah. So yeah, this idea, right, that they've always told us. I remember growing up, like, what do you want to be? Huh? What do you want to do? Like all these different things, and it's like, that's a lot of pressure to put on a kid, especially, right? And then like you mix everything else in life. Like for me, it was religion. And like reading the book of Revelation, damn, this is gonna get crazy. Come here when God comes back, right? And what if one day I wake up and I'm one of those that got left behind?
I know. It's so wacky to even say this. I remember my mom telling me that story, and I was like, I'm okay. Like, Ma, I'm gonna get left behind, and I'm okay. Like, I was like 6.
Yeah.
I was just
traumatic.
Like, I'm already okay with getting left behind. Like, I'm not even going to try to live up to whatever it is you guys are up to. I'm not, like, I did the whole thing. I went to the whole churches, but I just remember really thinking to my head, like, who's going to save all the people that are left if you guys all leave? It's okay. I'm fine with staying. If you guys all have to vanish into whatever's next, that's cool. I'll stay. Like my little kid brain, it didn't even make sense. You guys are all going to leave these people down here? Mm-hmm. Who's going to tell them?
Well, my grandma always told me that you were able to repent. The only thing is that you had to get your head cut off if you wanted to go back up. It was like some weird stuff, and I'm like, where are you getting it? I was like, oh, it's on the Bible. I'm like, what? Where in the Bible does it say that? It's like, oh, well, it was the 7 years after the fact or something or other. I remember that. I mean, that was 2005 when I read the book. I think, yeah,
and
2005.
If you thinking what we think about, like what potentially a skull could retain, and like maybe the magic that a skull could retain, all the people that were like, no, I'm not accepting this. The only way they could accept was to get decapitated. Now the powers that be had their skull.
Got some skull and bones going on. Mm-hmm. Back again to this indigenous lore where even in Florida, right, you had the Timucua, you had the Tequestas. They would keep the bones because the bones held it. They would feed the remains of their ancestors, like the people who would pass away. When they would pass away, they would, at these, they call them charnel houses or carnel houses, however you say it. They would go to these houses and they would give a piece of their food as like an offering, because that family member was still with them, right? And then they would take their bones, they would dehydrate them, put them in a little special box, like this little leather box, and they would return it back to the family. And that ancestor wasn't dead. That ancestor had actually become, or the family member wasn't dead. He had become like a deity, almost like an ancestor, which was higher up in the chain. And also the deaths of their family members would shift their family outline. So it would shift. Your mother wouldn't be your mother anymore, right? She'd be something. She'd be your ancestor or something. Again, this is, you can look it up, but the idea that death would quite literally shift their relationships in their family and their hierarchy and everything. It was crazy, like the craziest thing ever. Like these ideas are what, obviously they're bizarre to us, but to them it wasn't. It was a way of life for them. But the idea that these remains hold power, I mean, that I think that, right, skull and bones, with the skull and bones of Geronimo, and who knows what else, because I recently did an episode where the guy who they were fighting over the artifacts at Machu Picchu, and the guy who discovered Machu Picchu was also from Yale, right? And who knows if he was into some shenanigans over there with the Ancient Eight Consortium or whatever that they refer to them as, like their secret societies. Now, these are very influential people, and what a weird connection, Yale with Machu Picchu. I would have never known that if it wasn't for that episode with Mystic Mark. Shout out to him.
And think of really like if Geronimo, as recent as a figure is in history to us as Geronimo, and in reality, we can't possibly think Geronimo was the most magical person or the most magical artifact. So if the skull of Geronimo retained any power, what other kind of power is being retained out there? Like what other kind of animals? That's where I think of things like Game of Thrones, where you see down in their crypt, they have a dragon skull. If you had Geronimo's skull and somebody else could have a dragon skull, like when people say, oh, I wonder what's under the Vatican, I wonder the books. What if it's not books? What if it's a dragon skull and it's something so much bigger than an idea of knowledge that we could obtain? Like, we were, I don't know if anyone out there has taken in the Avatar movies, but I think it's so interesting when we talk about things like, or even melanin or virgins, or these kind of things. They're draining it's almost the pineal gland of a whale.
Yeah.
In this, that's the highest, like higher than the tree of life that they wanted to mine in the first one, the pineal gland of the whale, because their philosophy center and their music center and their language center was way bigger than the avatars on this island. And humans were using it to stay young. And so it's like, we know they study it on rabbits. We know they do it on turtles. Here's this thing on whales. So I just wonder, it's like the levels of things I feel like they know that we don't know and that they keep from us. And then they want us buying all into Western medicine and technology. I mean, they even told us, if you want to make a living, go into medicine or computers. Why? So when you pull the power grid, all I know how to do is this. And the only thing I know how to do is this. You didn't teach me what any of the pharmaceuticals meant in school. You didn't teach me, you barely showed me the human body, because now you have it compartmentalized so much. If I learn about the vascular system, I don't know anything about the endocrine system. And if I learn about that, I don't know anything about muscles. And if I learn about geriatrics, I don't know anything about pediatrics. Like, it's so wild what they've kind of done to us, when I used to think this knowledge was just ours to have, and we just passed it down. And you might be able to go sit in the skull of a whale, which, if you haven't seen the skull of a whale and still think there's dinosaurs, that's crazy. That's crazy.
You believe in dinosaurs or no?
No, I think that's the most ludicrous thing. And people are like, well, gators. And I'm like, well, then alligator's still there, so it's not a dinosaur. Like, it's a silly thing of humans are wild. They're wild. But
killer whale, look at that. It looks like a dinosaur,
right?
Yeah.
And then anything you take about a T-Rex, that's a dragon. Those little baby arms like that are ostrich arms, and they need big wings on them.
So the Avatar movie, The Way of the Water, right? Spoiler for those people listening. Skip ahead if you don't want to hear the spoiler.
And I do use a lot of pop culture shit to talk about big stuff that's in esoteric. Like, I'll read it and then I'm like, how am I going to explain this?
Oh, 100%.
So
And that idea, because the whales were experiencing religion, they were experiencing spirituality, they were experiencing like this whole other realm. That actually, I think it's Timothy Leary. I actually wrote about that, about how, and I could be getting this wrong. I'm getting this from Donut. Shout out to him. The idea that whales can have spiritual experiences because their brains are so big. And we're gonna be doing something here soon on whales, but yeah, that's not too far fetched. That whales can have their own spiritual experience. Now, what's interesting about that is, do they believe in the same God that we believe in? Do they believe in like, well, I'm saying we, but you know what I'm saying, that God, not insert your religion God here, but maybe let's not talk about prophets or the Son of God like Jesus or whatever. Like, let's talk about the Godhead, like the top one, right? The one that emanates out
a
reality.
source energy of
source,
whatever
right?
that is.
Because you'll get lost in the nitty gritty, like, oh, this guy was a prophet and he wasn't the Son of God. Like, they'll start to break everything
Me
down.
and
Like,
you could
no.
have one whole series podcast and never get to the end of it.
Yeah, let's step it up. The source, right? Like the one, the God, the whatever that thing is. Like, do they believe in that? Are they connected to that? Who knows? And whales can communicate with, like, was it miles and miles? I don't know the exact distance, but miles and miles away. And they talk in this weird, and they have feelings, like they have compassion and love, and there's interactions with people in whales where the whale like touch the flipper, like be gentle enough to know that little human being, right, it knows just enough. Let's pull it up. Whale.
And people have stories all over of like whales saving their boat or saving them, or being in a raft and getting circled by different dolphins. And even that picture, that man holding that whale, that is like a CGI they take in the way of water with this whale in one of the avatars.
What a crazy looking animal. That's such a crazy animal. It's so big.
All
Yeah.
of them. They're and look how they sleep. That's a sperm whale sleeping. Oh wait, that's a humpback. But if you look up the sperm whale, the humpbacks might sleep the same way too. But the sperm whale sleeping is wild. Look at that.
You know what gives me like the heebie-jeebies, like seeing like where you can't see the bottom?
That's
I
a
know
real
there's a
fright.
name for that.
Yeah, some people get like a sense of height scare when they're in the water like that. They say you lose it if you're somebody that gets it when you're snorkeling. They say if you learn how to scuba dive, you lose it immediately. The second you know you can dive down into the water. But I even believe the scuba dive, if you've noticed the last few years, people are swimming all around great sharks or great white sharks and all these animals and killer whales all over. And it's because they've lost their sense of fear of these animals that we used to not have until two keys on a keyboard went dun-dun, 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 and then we all started to be scared of Jaws. But we used to not be scared of the water. We were very comfortable in the water. And so I also believe they feared of how long humans can hold their breath. And I think the more that we're seeing humans go down into the water and record it, it's like Tony Hawk doing a 900. Once somebody can see him do it, now there's a 1200. And that's how it's like, oh, that guy can hold his breath for 8 minutes. Now someone can hold their breath for 10. And when you look up all these other animals, seals and whales, and they can hold their breath for so long. And we have huge lungs for our size. We just don't have calm hearts. So there is some little things in this, but in all James Cameron movies, that he takes so much truth, and there's so much about the livingness on this earth, that of the Avatar Earth. I think it's Pandora, which is like, of course, that he tries to show in the Abyss, that I believe, and we get into the Titanic and the sub stuff again, but I believe that he knows something that's deep under the water. Like almost the aliens have never been off planet ever. Almost like we're the aliens that came off planet.
Yeah, no,
Which
no,
that's like a concept I never hear. Like there was something so peaceful here, and we're the ones. Like we're the ones that aren't supposed to be here.
No, absolutely. I've talked about that. That's one of the things that doing mushrooms had like opened up for me, where mushrooms told me like, yo, humans are cancer. Like humans are destruction. They are everything they touch. They turn to not to gold, but the opposite, whatever. You know the concept I'm getting at. And that's one of the things I kept hearing over and over again. And I remember while I was just blasted on mushrooms, just peaking, and then watching the documentary Our Earth or something like that, our nature or something, and seeing the seals that I think these elephant seals that have to climb higher and higher to get colder and colder, but it's like a 4 ton or 2 ton animal that's not supposed to be 200 feet up in the air, and they're all pushing themselves off this cliff, and this seal's just tumbling down to its death. Mind you, I'm on mushrooms. I'm just like freaking out.
Sorry
I'm
to
like,
laugh.
yeah,
I
like
pictured it in my head and it actually made me laugh. And I'm like, what a horrible psychotic thing to laugh.
what? So I'm watching this and I'm seeing that just they would pan out the camera and it would just be just it would look like miles and miles of these seals, and I'm telling myself like, why are there so many of them? What's happening? Like there were so many seals, and then they're showing you the seal fall to its death, this brutal death, and then obviously it's like an English narrator, and watch the 2 ton animal, right? I have a
This
horrible
is
accent.
all because of humans.
Yes,
That's what it makes you
exactly.
think, though. But it's probably
Exactly.
not.
Well,
This is,
well,
you remember
maybe
how you
not,
said
but
the narrator of the Putin thing earlier? I always use this analogy. They could just use a polar bear swimming to ice and then put any narration over it and say, the ice caps are melting. Look at this poor polar bear. Can't find anywhere to sleep or eat. Nope. If you watch this polar bear 100 years ago, this is exactly what it does. No
yep.
ice caps are melting. The New York sea level's at the exact same. It's all just fresh water. If you fill up your glass all the way to the top with ice and water, as the ice melts, it doesn't overflow. It doesn't start overflowing your glass. So
Mhm.
it's just, there is some things that with philosophies, I know people will just be like, that's flat earth philosophy. I'm not really a flat earther. I'm not like, I don't know what I think's really going on, but I do think that there's too much. They do want us to think we're the cancers when I really think their serial killing and murder and like us and things, that's not really us. They've tried so hard to convince us human nature is a certain way, but I
There are
don't.
some pieces of shit though.
Yeah, but I think even that they're MK Ultra. They're just MK Ultra to a better extent. They're from MK Ultra parents to better extent. Like, you know, everybody's like, not all cops are good cops. You have to be a certain kind of person to want to be a cop. Where people are like, not all soldiers are good soldiers. You got to be a certain kind of person to want to kill for your country. There's certain things that not all fraternities are bad fraternities, but why are you joining things? Like what? There's just certain things I don't understand. Where what organization is a good organization?
That shit is gay. Don't be joining stuff, right?
Yeah, my dad taught me to not join anything. And so the inconvenient truth really is that they've been trying to sell us the global warming narrative for as long as we know, because it's the new one. They tried to sell us the ice age before that. And I really just think as far as you go back, because they know about the sky clock and we don't, they're trying to convince us to sacrifice the kids for the weather. That's as far as you go back, and we don't know anything about it. So they're like, oh, look at, we're gonna cover the sun unless you give us enough of your children that we're gonna sacrifice to this thing, and then the sun will come back out, but it was just an eclipse. I think they're doing that still right now, except now they don't necessarily need us to give them our children. We'll just transition them. And so we're just doing another kind of sacrifice for the weather.
Yikes. Yeah, no, that's another one, right? Where you can quite literally just, it's such a powerful thing to be able to manipulate somebody into whatever it is you want them to do. And then recently there is all these, I don't know if you've noticed, these shows on how to become a cult leader.
Yeah.
And then there's this other show, I think it's like Cult something on Hulu, where it's like about cult leaders. And why is it that we know, right, when it comes to all these serial killers and all these documentaries, that they just do documentary after documentary on the hell's Dahmer? They've done like, how many documentaries are on Dahmer? How many documentaries on Dahmer? Like, you think that they're gonna come up with more stuff?
Bundy.
Wikipedia
Same.
lists 20 Jeffrey Dahmer projects have been released since 1992. By comparison, there have been 12 Batman movies and TV shows produced in the same amount of time. 20 Dahmer documentary. Like, it's what I talked about at the beginning with the Bigfoot show or the Oak Island show. It's like, oh, this is gonna be the show. This is gonna be the one where they really show us that clear picture of Bigfoot or Dogman or Mothman, or what'd you mention earlier? Godzilla. Why is it we all see the same thing and not something else, something completely different? But yeah, what a ridiculous. There are too many shows.
It's so
about
funny
Dahmer.
you said like that, because I took in that, how do you like what do you do to become a cult leader? And I just flipped through all the guys they mentioned. Not one mention though of you just have to join the CIA. Every single dude in that how to become a cult leader is all guys I would say are shadow government selling, doing MK Ultra, and all the guys they'd say are serial killers in the same way, because they use that Manson and everything. They've all been Berkeley experimented on. They've all been LSD
sure
experimented on.
Coincidence, Chaney. I'm sure there's no correlation between CIA assets and cult leaders, okay? I'm sure it's just a big coincidence and it just happens to be that way. No, but absolutely you're right. And again, it's all a psychological project, and it goes back to this MK Ultra mind control, and that's why that movie, They Clone Tyrone, is pretty important as far as like mainstream narrative, Cinemagician, Sorcerers of the Subconscious type of thing, because it shows everything that we're talking about in this movie. But then it kind of just like laughs at it, like, hey, this is just a funny joke. It's just
Harry Potter magic. Ha ha ha. It's not
don't
real,
think
kids.
anything. I've been meaning to get into Harry Potter. I haven't. I remember as a kid starting, similar to series, I would start books over and over again, and then somehow or another you would drop the book and never finish it. So you'd start it all over again because you wouldn't be able to remember what it was about to begin with. And I think it was it the Chamber of Secrets? Is that the first one? Harry Potter.
I do not know.
Of course, there we go. Harry Potter. Harry Potter book series order. So, 1997, The Sorcerer's Stone, of course. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And I don't think I ever remember watching the movies all that much. Because I was thinking about this the other day, like starting to watch just to see if I could pick up any esoteric or occult stuff from it, which I'm sure there is. I mean, obviously. And yeah, I haven't watched it. I don't know if you ever got into that series or not.
Well, I had a friend right after college that was super nerdy into it, and so for her birthday, I went to go see one of them at the theater. That's it. I don't know what one it was, but I do know enough of the lore out of them. I know what everything means. Like, and from other, it's almost like you're talking in a religion. So if you're like saying a Horcrux, that's a Harry Potter term for maybe like, trapping something inside of an object that could also be a relic. And so sometimes I'll use Harry Potter terms to talk about stuff that I'm talking about, magic, or that I've looked up from other books. But I like the Harry Potter zeitgeist because you get right into they know exactly what it is. So many people have seen it that you can talk about really big magic concepts and just use little Harry Potter ideas. And they're like, oh, like Mrs. Hufflepuff or something. And I'm like, oh, okay, exactly. So some of the things I research, to like just be able to speak to them in their language.
Mhm.
But I
No,
haven't really seen
definitely.
it. I know too much about it. It's like the same as like Doctor Who or
Well, but
there-
that idea though that it is almost a religion for some people. I think there's a religion on Jediism or something like that where there people believe that they're actual Jedis, and it's funny
like the
because
Force.
I was doing a decode or a deoccult of Star Wars, the first one, and the day that week that I was gonna do that, I was at my son's basketball practice, and it's like this big facility where they do like events and stuff like that. And it's an indoor soccer arena, and then the back is where they do the basketball. But there was a separate court that was next to it, and they were doing, apparently there's this whole Jedi lightsaber fighting league. So it was a bunch of grown ass men, almost like fencing, but with a fucking lightsaber. And they were going at it with like these lights. And I looked up to see how much it was. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I'm like, that sounds like a dangerous new hobby because you build your own custom lightsaber. My wife knows how I get with new hobbies. I always try and get the best stuff with the new
Yeah.
hobby. So I was looking it up, and these lightsabers are like freaking $500, however much, carbon fiber, fiber optic lights, all this craziness. But I was like, how sick is that to just go in
I
there
have like $100 lightsaber, not to like put my total nerdy self on blast, but this is probably before they even had a $500 lightsaber, to be fair. This is like probably 15 years ago, 13 years ago. I got like $100 lightsaber, and it's like, I got like Luke's, so mine's green, and it's like boom, and it does that. And when I
check
hit it on
this shit
another
out.
lightsaber, it's like boom, boom, and it like does all the sounds. A lot of the guys though that I did know from other nerdy like LARPing events, they would choreograph full fight scenes, and they were like next level fun.
How sick is this?
Yeah, these are choreographed fight scenes, and they're next level.
That was one of the things I definitely grew up with, watching Star Wars. I would fall asleep to watching Star Wars. And these dudes are dressed up, but these other people were in like the fencing attire. So here. They were like light speed saber league. And they were in like these weird suits or whatever, and they were fighting each other. But this is definitely a niche crowd, right? I mean, it's like the cosplayer crowd where they'll go above and beyond, whatever. But I thought it was pretty cool, and of course, when my wife saw me looking, I was like, maybe I'll get
She's
into
like,
this.
if you start lightsaber league, you are not going to be podcasting as much.
Look at this. See, they would wear these gloves, these weird gloves.
See, I would have to give my wife like, I'd be like, so I was thinking I'm either going to start Muay Thai or lightsaber league.
You should record. You should like set up a camera and record you asking her that. And be
I have to
like,
give her one thing more. Either it has to be dumber than this or more dangerous. Like, so for her, she's always going to pick me to do the dumb thing over the dangerous thing. So if I give her like, she's like, I don't want anyone kicking you right now in Muay Thai. Like, I don't know if I want you rolling around in jujitsu. But if I was like, I'm hanging out with a bunch of dudes and we're doing lightsaber stuff, she'd be like, go for it. Like, I can only tell you no so much.
I'm gonna go to the lightsaber league with Juan and Paranoid American. Do you think we
Yeah.
can get Paranoid American to do something like this? Can you imagine Paranoid American?
No
with-
way.
Have you ever seen his legs?
No, I've seen how tall he is though.
Does Paranoid American even have legs? I mean, I've seen his legs, and it'd be funny to see his skinny ass legs and holding a lightsaber, right? So I think we could let's set something up
in.
like that. I think that
I
would
think
be
a
really
funnier
fun.
one would be if we do a haunted house somewhere in Florida and we record it and stay the night in it.
No. I think like a haunted house, like a Halloween, like spooky, like jump out. So I recently got invited to a project, and they're talking about doing some stuff that involves like opening up portals and stuff like that. And I was like, I was like, I'll hang out, I'll be around, but as far as being a part of the actual experiment, I don't know about all that. I'm not trying to, because you have people who push the limits when it comes to all this occult stuff, right? We have all these movies, we have all these shows, we have all these things, but when the shit hits the fan, Chaney, let's say, right, we're talking about interdimensional, we're talking about aliens, we're talking about all these stuff. When the shit were to hit the fan, let's say a portal opens up in front of you, would you jump in the portal? What would you do? Because I think you have like a lot of cryptid hunters and stuff like that they kind of chase after the stuff, right? It's probably for good content, but what would you really do if you were to see like the portal open up or something?
100%. It depends on who I'm with, and I'm not going in alone, but I will go in first.
How would you make sure that the person would go?
I just have to trust at that point. But I would say I'm gonna go in, and if you hear me scream, do not come in. But if we're like a group of us, I'd go in. But here's another thing where I agree with you. I think there's a lot, because we're into this whole like new age and the occult, and all these new schools of thought have almost hit at the same time, and people have woke up so quick that they have so much information. I think cults are easily to form right now, like real easy. I think it'd be real easy. You could just walk into a yoga studio and walk out with like 10 people that would join your cult. And that's just the yoga. That was just picking on the yoga studio. There's so many other things that I think you could walk into and walk out. But I think that I'm not practicing magic with just anyone. I'm not trying to go into a haunted house and use a Ouija board. Like, there's certain things that I'm not trying to do. It's not the things I mess around with or feel comfortable with. And so there are, like, I want to go to New Orleans and I want to look all through it. I don't want to practice voodoo with anyone. Like, I have lines of things but I do know friends of mine that I know that do voodoo, and I love them, but I don't want to do that with them. Like, that's not my magic. Like, I wouldn't know how. So I feel like when you don't know about things and you fuck with them, you are opening yourself up to things that you have no idea about. And so I know about too many things to fuck with it. That's really, like, I actually have researched too much to just go playing around with stuff and conjuring things. And I do know people too, and they'll be like, oh, I conjured this deity, or I talked to, and it's by name and like big names of things that I'm like, whew, I'm not like, people have told me I have spirit guides. I feel like I've seen one of them in a like psychedelic experience, but somebody told me with one of my spirit guides, I could look in the mirror with her specifically, and if I wanted to, I could see her. Like, she had the ability to do this. All spirit guides are different and possess different kinds of energies. Some people do have spirit guides that might be like Freya, and you're like, what? Like something that you've heard of that's a deity. I don't have any of that, but I also don't want to conjure anything in the mirror. So it's just like, I'm fine. Like, this is something people tell me all the time. You need to thank your spirit guides. I never have. I've never thanked my spirit guides. But people have also given me tarot decks. I wish I could do tarot. It's so cool. I love it. I have people do tarot for me, but it's just not my magic. So that's how I feel about, like, where people are like, hey, we should all go fuck around because we've all read Manly P. Hall and all know who Aleister Crowley is. Let's go open a portal. I don't want to do that. I ain't trying to open portals. Have you opened a portal before? No? Then I ain't trying to be your first portal opener guest.
The more you fuck around, the more you find out, right? So, and that's one of the things, and I don't know if it's the religious indoctrination in me or not, but yeah, I have the utmost respect for these things. Now, does that necessarily make them real? Because people can argue up and down that all this stuff is just make believe. And I like the way that me and Thomas were talking about it the other day, where what if all these people were just LARPing? But what if LARPing puts you in that state to where it becomes real, right? Back again to what we were talking about, like, it starts mental, but then it can grab a hold of you and it becomes an actual thing. Because when people are having, and I know I use cryptids because it's one of those realms where you can talk about it for hours and hours and hours, but then there's like the evidence for it is so slim, and you can watch a documentary on a cryptid, and they probably won't put up anything on like, and I love watching them with my son because he'll sit the whole hour and a half or whatever waiting for them to show
You
the
know it's not
Bigfoot.
gonna.
And I know it's never coming, so he's like, where's the big where are they gonna show the Bigfoot? And I'm like, just he's coming, just just settle down, he'll be here, and they're gonna show him here soon. And they never do. And it's like, but to those people, to some people, I'm sure that there's some people who are just telling stupid stories, but for some of those people, they actually saw something, they experienced, it was an actual experience for them. And you get into the phenomenology of it, where this was a true experience that they were feeling at that point in time. Now there was nobody around to see it, but just because a tree falls in the woods, right? What's the whole saying? If a tree falls in the woods, does it make a noise? Whatever.
Yeah, and no one's around to see it. Doesn't make a noise.
Yeah, so it's like that type of thing. I mean, and again, I'm using cryptids because it's one of those where, similar to the occult, where it's like, well, I can summon whoever, Cthulhu or whatever, and he's like, oh yeah, show me. 1 second. Like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm feeling him.
Or even like, I can turn anything into gold. Like, I'm an alchemist, I can turn it into gold. Really, that would just be how to keep the king away from us. We'd be like, if you keep interrupting us, we're never going to be able to get your gold. And then every once in a while we'd go and be like, hey, homegirl, oh, you want something done for your crops? We're like, I'd be like, Juan, go throw some shit on her crops, and I'm going to do a spell. She gives us some gold. I give it back to the king. Look I turned something into gold. But really, it was just all a way to keep people off our back. I think everything starts out as a LARP. No matter what it is you want to do in life, you have to LARP it first. You have to see yourself doing it, no matter what it is. Even if it seems like a silly little monotonous job that you want to drive to work, you see yourself driving to work tomorrow. It's why you have so much dread today. It's like, one day I'm going to drive. One day I'm going to learn how to drive. And then you do. It's like everything starts out as live action role play of the thing. Every single thing on the planet.
Or when you were a kid and you wished that you were bigger, and now you just want to be a kid again.
I know.
Being an adult sucks.
But you know what? All the things that they've like convinced us of, like the bills aren't real, the money's not real. Like, why is it that this person goes to work for this amount of hours and that person goes for that amount of hours and that person makes 20 times more for the hour of work?
Yeah.
Like, it's like none of that's real. It's just an agreed upon fairy tale. Like, how much people used to be able to take cans and a string and talk in them, no matter how long the string, and they'd pull it tight.
Did you ever do that as a kid?
Yeah. And then I could hear, like, we'd have one on our tree fort, and there was just a hanging one. Like, one was up in the tree fort and one was hanging. I mean, I don't know why we needed it. We knew we were the only ones around the tree fort, but you do that weird shit when you're a kid. But so much about this is belief. These copper wires that go to this thing, and then it shoots into satellite, but for some reason we believe it. We all collectively believe that this Skynet is going to provide us all this free internet, and it's like we all collectively believe it. But at one point somebody said, this wire right here is going to make it so people can talk to each other. And they're like, I'm going to be able to talk to that wire. Not only are you going to be able to talk to this wire, I'm going to send color TV through this wire one day. You're going to send color TV through that wire one day. I'm going to do this, and people are going to see me. Yep. Then they'll do it in live time. And someone has this right now in live time, and my words are going across now. They can see what I'm doing in live time. So I'm like, that just started out all as a belief that one day I'm going to hold this phone in my hand and be able to talk to you. This box, it's not even going to be called a phone. Why do we call it a phone still?
Yeah, cell phone. No, but you're absolutely right. But and also there's the aspect of it that we don't understand how it works, right? And it's like this weird, because I know how to plug my modem in and my router, and I can set it up, but I can't tell you exactly how it works. And sometimes I always wonder, like, as a pro, because I've taken programming and stuff like that, and I always wonder, like, damn, this is crazy. Programming stuff, right? Writing a script to load it up on this thing, and it'll do whatever you tell it to. But what's even crazier is the people who wrote that program to be able to program that other thing. So it goes like that. It keeps going all the way down into more specialized and more esoteric, because that's essentially what esoteric means. But yeah, no, the idea of using these things that we don't know, and I've covered plenty of that, where like the occult origins of XYZ, and literally almost anything in history was first created for an occult purpose, like for something occult. Like somebody sent me something today, I think it was, of the father of the supercomputers and how he was talking to elves under his house or something like that in tunnels. We pull it up here. And the father of the modern day computer was trying to summon the devil as a kid. Let me, I have to sign in here. Never
And
mind.
just
Pull it up.
if I wanted to create something, like if eventually you have all the money in the world, or you're the oldest soul in the world to get all the money in the world, our phones, like, you need experience to feed your egregore, your servitor. And so all of us giving it all of our experience and all of our smiles and our laughter, I almost think like the podcasting and the Twitter spaces and the Telegram chats, this is what they want. They want us all on this other network, because each one of these other networks is all recording us in all different ways. And so we're going to be the first avatars on the computer. Like, we don't even know it yet. Like, most of the fringe is just one thought, but we're just filling the computer with different avatars. Like, they're going to know every way that we turn. They'll only know some of the people, like my mom, they'll only know her glamour shots. You know, that's how much they have of her. But me, they got every one of my turns. Yeah. I'll be like, Ma, throw me some of that cash. I won't even be mad. I'll be like, you showing your feet on OnlyFans, Mom?
So
she would never.
Here, let me pull this up because it's funny. I try to pull it up on the actual website that I remember the person sending it to me on. But of course, when I pull it up, and I was looking at it today, but the idea, Seymour Cray, the father of supercomputing, claimed that elves offered him help to overcome design problems. This is from a year ago, but Cray said, well, we have elves here and they helped me. Cray subsequently showed his visitor a tunnel he had built under his house, explaining that when he reached an impasse in his computer design, he would retire to the tunnel to dig. While I'm digging in the tunnel, the elves will often come to me with solutions to my problems, he said. What? Cray avoided publicity, and there are a number of unusual tales about his life away from work. So when I'm at home, I work for 3 hours and I get stumped. I'm making a fuss, so I quit and I go to work in the tunnel. It takes me an hour to dig 4 inches, and in the 4x4s now, as you can see, I'm in Wisconsin woods, and there are elves in the woods. So this dude was talking about talking to elves, and they would give him the solutions to his problems. What in the world?
I feel like we find a lot of these inventors, or like they all seem to have this push somewhere.
By like interdimensional entities?
Yeah. Like yeah. And so then you almost wonder, you know, they say like if you get into the idea of the Nephilim or like fallen something, and that some of them, they keep going back to the Egyptian timeline. What they always taught us is everything in history always kind of took this slant, but then all of a sudden it took this huge step. And so if you have things working with us and against us, everyone always assumes the technology is for us. But really, the car made it so we could get further. Did we need to get further? You know, the computer makes it so we can talk further. Do we need to know the information that's going on all over the world? People get into cryptocurrencies because then you'll be able to have world commerce. What do you need to buy from the other side of the world? It's like they keep getting these ideas of expanding that. It almost makes me wonder how much of the advancements, if your people are getting them from these other realms, actually advance humanity.
And that's something I've talked about too, right? And also, what if those things are trying to break into our reality, right? Like, look at this. This is, again, the wicked idea. Another favorite pastime was digging a tunnel under his house. He attributed the secret of his success to visits by elves while he worked in the tunnel. While I'm digging in the tunnel, the elves will often come to me with solutions to my... This almost sounds alchemical, right? Like secretive, like while I'm digging in the tunnel, but then he had an actual tunnel. The elves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, maybe whatever. Okay, it was green language, but no, this dude had an actual tunnel.
Don't be literal with it. And then you're like, no shit, he really had a tunnel.
Right?
Like it's Dante's Inferno. No, real tunnel under his house.
So the Cray through super scalable system. And then you have the idea that these computers, right, these quantum computers can open up portals, right, like holographic wormholes and stuff like that. So let me see here if I can find this dude's Cray. See more
Butts.
under his house.
That's a dad joke.
The Cray. Wait, hold on. Is this, dude?
Oh my gosh, 4
There's
inches
no
a
way.
day.
There's no way. This is his tunnel.
This is his mind palace.
No. Here we go. Exploration. No, this is a different one. But
As a hobby.
right? International authorities on moths and butterflies of the Smithsonian Institute who had found health and recreation and digging an amazing series of tunnels beneath his Washington home. So this is from the Smithsonian Institute.
You're so crazy for believing in dumbs. Oh, here's just some random dudes that used to do this alone.
Right? It's like that. There's also another guy, like you have the here in Edward Leedscown in Homestead with the Coral Castle and how he built that by himself. But apparently building tunnels right here. Mr. Seymour Butts Cray, the father of the supercomputer, liked to tunnel too, not satisfied with using his huge intellect and the advancement of computer technology. Also decided to pick up a shovel and get digging. He explained that when he was tunneling, his mind was free to work on his computer problems. He also allegedly claimed that elves came to help him in these underground calculations. Is there pictures? Look at this, the Templar. I've seen this on YouTube, the Templar underground tunnel thing. I want to see pictures of it. This guy's, you know, and that's one thing with me too. Like I was thinking about the other day where if you see me doing like yard work, me at least, I'll have my headphones in and I'm in the zone. Like I'll get what I need to get done as I'm listening to like an audiobook or whatever, but I'm learning. I'm jamming out or cranking out like some crazy Manly P. Hall lecture where he's going in on some crazy philosophical esoteric concept, and I'm just in the zone, just taking it all in. And it's something about working with your hands and doing something, and it helps me learn more. Almost like I heard it put too that when you doodle and you're listening to a lecture, it helps you retain it more, like better, right? Because it's like
I had a therapist tell me that in college. I was I think no one ever gave me Ritalin or Adderall, but I have a bad ADD. And when they're like, pay attention. If I look at my professor talking, my ears and my brain were elsewhere. I could hear every detail of every sound going on in the classroom, every breath, sneeze, chair moving, everything. I couldn't focus on the teacher at all. But if I looked down and doodled and started drawing whatever I was drawing, and my therapist told me, stop taking notes. Stop taking notes because you're perfectionist and your brain misses one word and gives up. So start just doodling and you'll retain everything the professor's saying. And so I stopped taking notes, and then it was all of a sudden like ding, like I have a photographic memory, but it's auditory. And I think most people have photographic memories. They just have to figure out the way they learn. And so when people, a lot of the times when you take notes, it's the same as your body, you're taking a picture of something. It doesn't go in your memory. When you're taking notes, you're almost giving it's like putting a phone number in your phone. It doesn't go in your memory. But if you doodle and your brain is thinking, this is the only time I'm going to hear this, it will keep it forever.
Yeah, there's something about even the journaling experience too. When you journal something, and my retention of information goes up drastically when I hand take notes. Obviously, that's not a viable option because it just takes too long, but it is something I sometimes do. I'll take notes. Right, my phone has a stylus. I just take the stylus out, take quick notes, and I'm able to remember things quicker. And I don't know, maybe this guy was talking in code, right? So I quit and go to work. So there's this Time article, technology just dig while you work. And again, I found a benefit in doing yard work or whatever it is around the house with headphones in, and I'm able to be productive at the same time while learning. And so whenever this dude he would work for 3 hours, get stumped, not make progress, so he'd quit, go work in the tunnel. But now as you can see, I'm up in the Wisconsin woods, and there are elves in the woods. So when they see me leave, they come into my office and solve the problems I'm having. Then I go back up and work some more. What the fuck was this guy on? Would you want elves to come and solve your problems?
But I mean, I had a lawn company for a while. I was a welder and like in lifetimes. And I painted houses when the world was on lockdown because I wasn't going to. And so during all those phases are when I, like, you know how you're like, I don't even know how I know the things I know. Where people are like, Juan, where did you learn this? And you're like, did I read it? Did I listen to someone? It's from some of that time I was working, and so much information went into my brain. It just became part of where people are like, find me the gravy on that, where I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to look it up for you. I just know it's real. I don't know why I know. I don't know where I read it, but because I was listening to so many books on tapes, or it would be a good interview or a Manly P. Hall lecture or these kind of things. But it was while I was doing something with my hands that it just totally stored itself appropriately in my brain.
Yeah, no, and the thing about Manly P. Hall too, especially, is that, right? Because yeah, you were saying that people, they went from like white belt to like black belt. So I can imagine people first learning about the Bermuda Triangle, and then boom, homunculus. Like what? They went from like the basic UFO Bigfoot to magical little men.
Think of how long you sat on Bermuda Triangle, and like think of how long you got to chill on 9/11 before anything else happened in the world. It's like now I'm like, oh my gosh, people are learning about 9/11, that blankets that were, just as corrupt as every other blanket they try to give you to keep you warm. Oof. And it's like all the amount of stuff people learn now. I see that's why they hear one person in a chat room that's like, love and light, your heart chakras, grab that crystal, and they're like, this feels so good, that's my new cult leader. Or they're like, oh my gosh, this person just talked about all this cryptocurrency I've never heard of, and they say that's my new call leader. Like, yeah. I just see how easy it is because everything they thought they knew is shattered, and it all happened overnight. Whereas I had like a good 15, 20 years to have all my belief system shattered.
So I'm taking notes. So yoga studios are a good recruitment area for cults.
Awesome. And a cult, I will tell everyone, this is where some of these dumb dudes I won't call out by name do it wrong. They're like, I'm going to start a commune. Everybody come. We're going to grow strawberries. It's going to be like a whole fantasy fuck fest. And no one comes to their cult because you have to start your cult like you do your club. So you have to have ladies' night. Ladies come free. And then all the men will join your cult. Like, all the dudes are out there like, we need all these capable, masculine men. So what? You guys are all going to be banging hammers till the cows come home and not getting laid. But if you have the ladies come first, and so you start your cult with the women, and you just have 20 women, you don't need any more. You like all the guys will come to your cult. And then the next guys that come to your cult, here's the thing where it gets next level though. Like 3 or 4 years in, the guys that come to your cult with wives, you can sleep with their wives too.
Yeah, you can cuck them, and you're the only one that can do that because you're the leader, right?
You're the leader. None of them, like, no one else is sleeping with any of those women.
I'm getting a download. I'm being visited by elves, and the elves are telling me I gotta. Oh, this is good. Okay. Yeah, the elf said I gotta fuck your wife. Sorry, dude. I mean, I don't make the rules. The elves make the rules.
See, you get to sit quietly most of the time. You'll be the cult. Like you'll wear a white robe, and then I'll be like the person that I'm like, no, he needs the finer things. That's how you have a Rolls Royce and a private jet. I'm like, no, we want him to sit on this nice stuff because it can't be you asking for it.
The elves are talking. I'm having a download right now. The elves said I need to. A Lamborghini. Yep, the elves want to ride in style, so we gotta get the Lamborghini. No, definitely. And again, I'm not gonna poke fun at people because you don't ever know the situation. But people, when you watch these things on all these documentaries that they put out, right? Hindsight's 2020. Obviously, it's easy to be like, oh, I wouldn't have fell for that. Because there's some smart, like Scientology. I mean, I know you had your run-in with Scientology, but there's some what I would consider smart people, individuals in there. But then there's smarter people that manipulated them to join, or like how did that
I think
work?
They've told them they were smart. Once I can play into your ego, here's the thing that nobody says about the cult followers. The cult followers are all egomaniacs that think they're special because they've realized the chosen cult. They're the only ones that see that this is the Messiah. They're one of the chosen ones. So it's the same as any of these other main religions.
Chosen Juan.
Yeah, chosen one. It's like once they say that, you're done for. So all the people that are in Nexium, that are in Scientology, that are in, and they get bigger, you could say Christianity, Mormon, Hinduism, like once your cult tells you that you're the only ones that get the next level thing because you have to believe in this cult, or if you follow me, I'm your only route to safety, then it's like, oh, it gets
channeling the elves right now. They're gonna be here any second now. I'm just gonna go dig in my tunnel, and
that's why I always said if I had a church, when I baptized you, you would become your own church, and that meant you didn't have to pay taxes anymore either, because that's really the only that's the best thing that Scientology could teach us is how to harass the IRS until we don't have to pay taxes.
Yeah, and that's funny that Scientology doesn't have to pay taxes here in Florida, but Disney does, right? Or what was that whole thing with DeSantis? What did he do with Disney?
I don't know. I know they're like a huge tax. I feel like Disney has a lot of the same rights as Washington DC, where they're like their own little sovereign land.
Let me see here what it was. Before I start spreading fake news, what it was, that legal battle, mass media.
I think DeSantis says a lot of stuff, it's the same as a president. Just because they say it doesn't mean it's a thing.
Oh, it was something completely different. It wasn't even for mad law. Or for saying gay or something like that. The don't say gay thing.
And even that bill shouldn't have been called that.
Special tax district called so banishing the company's ability to do just that and renaming the district Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, and is no longer giving preferential treatment. Yeah, so he did do something with their tax status. This legislation ends Disney's self-governing status, makes Disney live under the same laws as everybody else, ensures that Disney pays its debts and fair share of taxes. Yikes. Signed the bill. Disney's special district was exempt from Florida's building code and fire prevention code and state regulatory reviews and approvals. And again, this is old. This is from June 28, 2023. This was a little bit ago, but yeah, I remember seeing something about this. I didn't care enough to really look into it, but yeah, Disney
I know,
fucked
but then
around
what does
and they
that
found
mean?
out.
But it is like because all those other corporations like Walmart or Amazon, or look at how many other corporations. Is it just Disney for like a political thing that he's going to go after right this second? But all these other corporations, because I know friends of mine, he
Yeah.
did this other thing where he was like, oh, we're going to pull the liquor license from people that are doing whatever gay thing at their hotel. And then he went and did this whole like propaganda thing about how he had liquor license pulled at this one Miami hotel, but I had a bunch of friends that called the hotel and then they went to the hotel to see if they could get a drink, and everybody could drink the whole time, where all he did was put their liquor license up for review in the state of Florida, which doesn't mean anything. You're just under watch for 21 days. So nothing happened. No days stopped in business of this hotel, but all the mainstream media thought this whole different thing. So I'm like, some of these things, I just feel like Disney is part of the elite system. Like everything about it. And I can't like nothing about all of their, they would like to do something like that though, where they're like, oh, we're losing ground in Orlando, we have to give a like front reason why we're going to pull the plug here, because they had to take a hurt the same way every, you know, all their theme parks and bullshit, and they're becoming more movie, like they make more money off their films and their little network and their things than they ever would people going into the theme park. You know, like every business is online anymore. You don't need brick and mortar to sell anything anymore. So it's like the Disney idea is already permeated. Do they need to keep up with 1,000 employees when it takes them 10 to run it online? And if everything's coming virtual reality, do they need all this space? It's almost like the movie theaters. The movie theaters were never really, they were already closing down because everybody has a big screen TV in their house. But then they use the excuse of being the reason they shut down. No, they were already shutting down for the last decade. Like movie theaters were already taking a beating. I almost wonder if that same thing isn't going to happen with Disney.
I don't think so. I think the reason it matters is because really, again, if you study Florida history, which I know you're up to par with, but I think Disney has been a big part of the growth of Florida, aside from its founding fathers, right? No pun intended, but the idea that Disney was at the forefront too. And really, let's be honest, Chaney. What is Florida really known for other than Disney? Like that's like when you ask somebody, first thing that
I'm
comes
like,
to
what? Miami or oranges, sunshine?
Well, what is there what is there in Miami to do? There's
Gators.
there's nothing to do in Miami. Look, unpopular opinion, there ain't shit to do in Miami unless you're a party type. You can go out and I know I've lived there. Like I've lived there. There ain't nothing to do. It's so boring in Miami, and that's why I would fish all the time. Again, I'm sure people feel some other way, but there ain't shit to do in Miami.
You could fish, and they have a good art scene, and they have a
banana
great
strapped to a
foodie
wall,
scene.
Chaney.
They have it's a fun art scene. That there's not, like, to me, Orlando is the most vacant town in Florida. Like, it is not anything to do with Florida at all. It's what tourists think Florida are. It's like, it's so gross when I'm there. The energy's there. It's fake. None of the buildings are real. Everything
This
is
motherfucker here. What was it? Whatever.
O Town. I'm like, it might as well just be one eye that they're like, here it is. Dr. Phillips High School,
Illuminati
Nickelodeon.
confirmed.
I'm like,
that's essentially what it is. A friggin' O-Town.
yeah, I think
You know?
Orlando's the worst city in Florida. Like, it doesn't.
I hate downtown Orlando. It's like and the people who, I love my city. Shut up. There's nothing to love about anything. Like,
I'm from
quiet.
Palm Beach, so I have a whole different feel. Like, my history in Palm Beach and like what I think of that is a whole different vibe than the rest of Florida. It's different than Miami and different than Orlando. And then I feel like Daytona has its own vibe. Panama City has its whole own thing. Tampa
That's not
has
Florida. That's not Florida.
that panhandle. Actually,
like
all
South
that was
Georgia.
Florida. I feel like everywhere from Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, South Georgia, that was all Florida at one point.
Yeah, the Central Florida. And I agree with you when it comes to Orlando.
If you're going to come to Florida and all you get to see is Orlando, you did not get to see Florida. You could have flown into Disneyland and just landed in Disneyland. You could have flown into Disney Tokyo and just landed there. You could have flown to Disney France if they have that. It is the least. There's nothing about Orlando that says anything Florida to me. But I am from Florida. My mom's from Florida. My, grandma came down here. My great grandmother came down here when she was in her 30s. So I'm just like, but Orlando, I saw how small it was. Like I got to see SeaWorld grow. I remember before Universal was there.
Wet and Wild. Did you ever go to Wet and Wild?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember. Like
that's where I probably got my first atomic wedgie.
I remember Wet and Wild. That's non-existent anymore. And
that's right, where I got my first douche, my first and only douche. The straight down slide. What are we up to as humans?
Oh, you went down the inverted one? Yeah. No, it would definitely.
You come all the way off of it. You're too young. Girl, you shouldn't be on this.
I think that Florida is a weird place, and again, I'm just it's my opinion. If it weren't for Disney, and now he's really poking the bear or the bee's nest or whatever you want to call it by doing this. Now, if it is a show, because it could all be a show and LARPing, right? For some sort of political gain, like, oh look, he's on our side. Because I laugh at the people who still think that the political system is not rigged, and they're like, I'm gonna vote for so and so. It's like, you have so much learning to do, right? If how is it that one joke, if voting mattered, they wouldn't let us do it? And it's like,
I totally am on the opposite side of that. I think your vote is your vote, and you could go and put nobody in, but they want to convince everyone that it doesn't matter. When our forefathers,
you think it matters, Chaney?
You used to only be able to vote if you had reality. You used to only be able to come and vote. The second they allowed transients and renters and women and like all this thing, it lowered it every
Fucking
time
women.
you can watch thing. Well, they didn't own land. So it wasn't that a woman couldn't own land, so she couldn't vote. A black person couldn't own land, so they couldn't vote. So the racism was where you could own land as a person. But a lot of the times with certain elite, they just owned too much of the land. The land was never supposed to be owned. You were a custodian of the land, not an owner of the land. So being that the only people that were allowed to say what went on here were the people that stayed here, that had investment here. So I would argue that all the most garbage cities and the people that live in the people that tell people not to vote usually live in a garbage city. They're not from the garbage city.
Orlando?
Like Orlando, like Portland, Oregon, like New York, like Chicago. And I'm sorry if you're from these places, it's a garbage city. And so they're from one of these garbage cities and they tell you this isn't worth saving because where they live isn't. But if you go to one of the cities that everyone moved to when they were having to be masked up and all those places, they wanted to come to a state that they didn't have to do that. So they ran to Florida, where obviously the voting mattered, or we'd be ran just like LA. And so otherwise, I didn't have to any time in my town, but they did in Orlando and they did in Miami the whole time. You know why? Because voting mattered, and my mayor and my city council and my school district didn't make it have to happen. So why they have us paying attention to clown shows and countries we don't even know exist, I would say your voting does matter. Who's your sheriff? A lot of the towns that are the best ran, that have the oldest, most constitutional kind of setup, it's like if you'll be talking to somebody at the bar who owns the bar and they'll be like, my great granddad was the sheriff and now my uncle he owns the automotive shop down the road and my dad's always had that thing and so-and-so's brother has always like, oh, you can trust him. He's a good attorney. They're always in our town. And yeah, there's dirtbags everywhere, but usually something worth conserving, you'll find conservative people. And something that's liberal fucking bullshit where it's outside like, let's all have this socialistic idea. We need electricity to pump our water. Like, those are all the places not worth conserving. No one's from there, and they're all the people most brainwashed to tell you, voting stupid.
Well,
but then when shit hits the fan, they all run to fucking my town. And then they get here with their dumb rhetoric of voting stupid. Well, don't come here and vote the opposite way. At least stand out. At least stand out. But just know, for every smart person out there that doesn't want to pick up a pen or punch a card or do something, can vote it to be stole. Yeah, they could be fucking stole. That's why writing on paper, keep holding people accountable, having real people volunteer for these positions, not machines that Germany has come in called Dominion. Like, there's things that people have just let go to wayside. But I will stand that it's like, if you want to protect something, you better stand up, because they're doing everything they can to have a bunch of illegal people come in your country that don't give a shit about your country. They're moving in Syrians that don't give a shit about your religion. They don't give a shit about your color. They don't give a shit about your school system, and they're going to vote. They're having dead people fucking vote. So tell me it doesn't matter. Tell me it doesn't matter. My dad probably voted for the last 3 elections. He's been dead. Like, it must matter. So the most educated people, I would say they want to try to convince you that it doesn't. And they have all the black-pilled people of the world running around being like, this doesn't matter. But they're the same ones that tell you it's not real. And they're the same ones that tell you, oh, all the vaccines are just saline. You've never worked in the medical system. You've never seen what I've seen. All the vaccines are just saline. You've never done your research on mRNA. You've never done your research on Tuskegee experiments. You've never done your research on what they're up to with insulin. So I just feel like so many people out there, they have huge accounts and they're touting off dumb ideas because they're lazy and don't want to do research. So I would say your voting matters. But keep being a cool kid and keep being black-pilled, and hopefully your kid won't have to clean up the mess because you didn't show up somewhere. That's what I keep thinking. Like, plant the tree and that you might never feel the shade of. And you don't have to trust a politician. Run for your politics. It's supposed to be a government by and for the people. Because if you were running tomorrow, I'm like, I trust this cat. I'd rather him do this than Biden. And that Biden's a stupid example because he's so far up the ladder. But there's people in your town, they're running your town in the shit. They're not from your town. Like, and people are doing it everywhere. And I swear people will stand up behind a person. And people are like, well, we don't need any government. It should be anarchy.
Yep.
That's all fine and dandy. But I don't want my sister and my nieces to pick up a fucking gun. Like, I don't want them to have to battle tomorrow. I don't mind. I don't have kids. I'll do it so they don't have to, whatever that means. But it's somewhere we can't let it keep rolling into the socialistic direction of what they want for us. They want us to have a godverment. They want us to have this Chinese dictatorship. They want us to have Elon do it so we can all vote on X.
I trust Elon with all my heart.
But I don't know. I know it's getting to time where even the presidential election, they don't have us paying attention at the 2-year. No one votes at the 2. You think people don't even vote for the presidential election? No one votes at the 2-year. Like, no one. You're putting somebody
you're
in
supposed
there.
To vote at the 2-year. I'm just into that meme of Trump. I'm just learning for the first time right now. I'm hearing it for the first time. You're telling me that meme of Trump. So yeah, I didn't even know that. I haven't voted since.
Two wings, same bird. Yes. The whole political system. Yes.
But the bird is artificial too, Chaney. The bird is fake. So
yeah, they only let 2 things on stage. They only let 2 things on there. So you have to untie the knot the same way this knot is so tied. It's so tied and tight. The best way to do the knot is you have to unravel it the way it was tied. Everybody wants to explode the system. There's too much wrapped up in the system. That will take, people want to explode the system and then have their idea that me and you are going to come and get to play on the internet and I'm going to get to drive over my bridges and then we can go to Disneyland tomorrow. No, you take down that corruption, everything else falls with it. And people are like, you don't need all that stuff. You can just grow your own vegetables. You guys couldn't even drive 45 minutes further to a grocery store and you don't know how to grow a tomato. Please stop trying to tell me you're going to grow enough tomatoes for your entire family. Like, please. Do you know how much food it takes to grow food for your entire family? You want a grocery store that's there. Like, you want other things that exist. You want skilled people to take care of things that you might not be skilled at. You don't want the whole system to crumble. Some people in your family might have worked generations to have a business so that one day that you can give it to your kids. You don't want the whole system to crumble. Like, why do the people that have been working their tail off have to deserve for their system to crumble too? Like, there's a lot of good people out there that they own their homes and have worked their ass off for that. They've have their own retirement and have worked their ass off for that. I don't want my mom to have to go to war. She deserves to get to go out in her boat right now. She's worked her ass off her whole life and paid into this corrupt system her whole life. So it's just like, I want to unravel it. I don't want to collapse it on top of her because she can't fight anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I was almost at a point that I was like, oh shit, I'm going to lose my ability to fight. I'm going to lose it. And then I got to trust these people that are just willing to, they're like, here, Elon, I want to check mark. Here, I just want more clout. Like, that's what I feel like. Everything's like, an algorithm can even, Chaney will turn on her phone every day for 20 likes. She won't open Instagram unless she has this amount of activity. They know me. They got my number. They're like, she'll like a mushroom shirt.
And that's the thing, right? Like this whole idea of having like some sort of virtual homunculi somewhere with these world simulations. Like I've always wondered, where does the information go? It's like, what if they're feeding it to some AI somewhere and reconstructing you, and now all of your information is sympathetically, magically linked to that freaking thing that they created. And it's like, now whatever happens to that thing inside that simulation happens to the Chaney out here, right? I mean, because they don't know where our information's going or who
Like
it's
a
being
perfect
sent.
voodoo doll.
100%. Yeah, the virtual voodoo doll. 100%. I believe that's what they're doing. I mean, they've talked about full world simulations. It's like, what? That they take statistics from, like census data, news, headlines, everything from that simulation. And they've been running this thing for, again, it's like back to Black Mirror, right? We come full circle where the realities overlaid on top of the other one. It's like, well, if I'm here, then that means that the original source reality must be here too. Therefore, whatever I'm about to do isn't even my decision. It's whatever the source reality's decision was. And then she freaking smashes the supercomputer and you see all the realities, right, overlapping on top of each other until it's tore down, and it's the core reality. Like they put this shit in these movies and in these shows, and it's like, it's just entertainment. I'm sure it's nothing, right? It's like, well, I've studied the occult, revelation of method type of thing. That's supposed to do something to you subconsciously, right? Again, sorcerers of the subconscious. Well, they rule your subconscious. And yeah, no, I think it goes back to these occult principles, right? Law of correspondence and law of contagion. And yeah. And what you're talking about, like this voting and all this stuff, well, they can imprint that into somebody's DNA. Because if you indoctrinate a generation long enough to where they don't even know what gender they are anymore, right? They're gender fluid or whatever you want to call it. I'm a homunculus or whatever. And it's like the next generation, that's already in their DNA. Boom. And it shifts down. I mean, that's been proved. That's been scientifically or seance-tifically proven, right? The seances that's an actual thing. That traits can be passed down genetically.
That's where I'm like, if you have land, even this is where it used to be like we would show up and be like, hey, I Chaney, everyone would see my face. There was no cowardice behind it. It didn't need to be a secret vote. There was no ostracizing. This is how I feel. And we would be allowed to say these things. I think that somewhere, even if you go and you just write NA or you write Juan, everyone on your podcast that doesn't want to do it just goes and writes in Juan. It just is, they can't do anything with that. They can't make, because our socials and our little voting records and our little things, we exist on there already. And they don't take us off. They've shown us that they'll vote with your dead relatives. Or they don't care at all. They just, for some reason, need you. So I'm like, go and take it away from them. Even if you don't put in anyone. If you live in a shitty city or just write in whatever you want to exist,
they'll
right
take
in yourself.
it either way.
They're gonna steal it. So if you make it null and void, so they can't steal your energy, like and then just vote on the other things, because then they do other sketchy things where they're like, you want to legalize marijuana, you want to legalize, You want to legalize, and they'll hide all those things in there in the 2-year vote and the 4-year vote under the presidential election that nobody gives a shit about or doesn't even know if it matters or not, even though it happens to be 1/3 of your fucking branch of the government for one dude. One dude gets 1/3. It's wild. And he runs the Marines and the Space Force. The Space Force. This is the craziest realm.
So you go ahead and you stack spaghetti sauce at a store and in a supermarket. You control the guy or the woman who brings out the carts on a forklift. So you go.
China.
That's the cream of the crop that America had to offer.
That's so crazy. It's so crazy. And so it's just like there's all these other things too hidden in there. So I'm just like, and if you have a crazy voting machine in your town, you can do something about that. The DA gets voted in some of these towns, and you're like, there's so many criminals and drug addicts on my street falling over on Trank. That's your DA.
We gotta
letting them out.
stop these interdimensional crackheads, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure to vote locally to stop the interdimensional crackheads that are jumping into portals while high on crack and messing around with the space-time continuum. Okay, so
right?
No,
it's the second most powerful spell.
No to the interdimensional crack. That's a campaign that I'm going to be starting here.
That's your shirt.
We gotta stop these crackheads from getting this esoteric occult knowledge and opening up wormholes. So, okay.
Because everyone wants the president to release it. That ain't ever gonna. Anytime they release it, it's so redacted. They're not gonna do anything.
So
it's only whistleblowers. That's all the chance we got.
Yeah, and the whistleblowers are part of the club. So back again to the
otherwise they're capped.
The first question that I had asked you, Chaney. I think I asked you what are your opinions or thoughts on the whole UFO thing being fake and gay. Well, obviously, right? We're talking about the government and all this stuff. But what are your thoughts on disclosure as far as that goes? Do you think, because I talked about before about how it's like a shift, and you kind of said that people will take on the whatever is being presented to them quite literally sometimes. But are the aliens real or are they not real? Are they demons? What are your thoughts on it?
I believe in Agartha. I believe there's something in Hollow Earth. It's definitely not a core like they tell us. Like it's a molten core and then it comes up in volcanoes. I think it could be water. Like we could be on a water world. It could be an inner water planet. It could just go water all the way down. I've heard something of recent that as deep as we can dig is as deep as they've been down in a submarine. It's the same. And I was wondering if it's as high up as we've gone too, because as above, so below. If we're fermented above, maybe we're, capped on both sides. I try to get into
DP, yeah.
I like Chinese handcuffs.
Yeah.
But I've theorized with people this week about space for the first time in so long. Because they were talking about how like Jupiter gives enough gas and stuff off that it could give enough energy to be another kind of sun, like a black sun.
What? Really?
Yeah, and it's the closest planet in our solar system to our sun, and that they call it a failed star. And so then I was thinking of like Jupiter the god, and I was just like, a lot of that representation is of life, and that it gives this thing. And we also hear about the black sun. And what if it was Jupiter instead? I was just doing these other theories. And then Europa is one of the moons on Jupiter, and Europa is, Europe as well. And so the etymology of that is like, I can't remember what it is now, but when I was looking into it, it's like an ice planet where they say everything could exist under the ice. And then somebody was theorizing that, the asteroid belt was a planet, and when it blew up, it blew the face off Mars and left the scar on Jupiter. But Jupiter also is a one eye. Like if you look at it, we always think Saturn. But Jupiter also has this eye representation on it. That's just one eye, this storm on Jupiter that's just sitting there.
And wasn't it Jupiter, the whole 2001 Space Odyssey movie? Wasn't it one of the moons of Jupiter?
I think so. It's so wild because the 2001 Space Odyssey is the beginning of the Barbie movie.
Yeah, exactly. Kubrick.
Kubrick.
2001
Boom.
Space Odyssey. Yeah, he was, right, speaking of space, he was one of those where they thought that it was that he was the one that had filmed it or whatever. So 2001 Space Odyssey, the monolith. So we have the alien supercomputer HAL to Jupiter and then I remember when they get there, they go through the portal, and then homeboy like he goes back in time to like a fetus and then like a light being and like this crazy. I have to rewatch that movie. That movie's
me too.
Crazy.
But a lot of what if, and the other philosophy of space is, what if we have to go through portals to get there at certain times on the sky clock and whatever, like if this idea of all the, because I usually think all the religions exist. I'm one of these people. Like, I don't really pick one. I think they all have tons of truth in them, more truth than not. All of them, even the craziest cults, probably have more truth than not in them. I think I'm a person that I think I can believe in space, flat earth, and Agartha. I'm I think it all can exist. And if you go through a portal to get through other of these planets, and they're more of like a realm as opposed to the stars that are out there, because there's things that say you shouldn't follow the wandering stars, and the wandering stars are the planets. We have the fixed stars in the sky, and then we have the wandering stars, and those are the planets. They're not fixed the same way as all the other horoscope signs, all the other zodiac. And the sun, we in modern science think of all those other illuminates out there are our sun. Like, just because of modern science has told us all those stars are just like your sun, but that might not be the case at all. So I was trying to theorize with this idea of, gosh, we've give all this Saturn representation and not enough representation to Jupiter. If this were the case, that it was actually this big quote unquote failed star, they call celebrity stars because they want us to follow them instead of the ones above us. And it was just blowing my mind. So I don't think we're the only intelligent being in the realm. Like, if there were a dragon even, or a whale we were talking about, I think they could be more intelligent than us. I think a dolphin could be more intelligent than us.
Matter because they don't have thumbs, but
or it's like not necessity. Like, maybe they're a 4-dimensional being where like a look and a fin, like opposable thumbs aren't even that important, because they say the killer whale is the only land animal that went back into the sea.
They're like, fuck this shit, I'm out. And they just
they say it was a wolf and they went back into the ocean. Yeah, there's like a Native American tribe that's like, when you see them all in there, maybe it's an Alaskan tribe.
Whoa, that's trippy.
Yeah, but they say it like went on, like evolved, like things came out of the ocean, was a wolf for a while, and then was like, gained a bunch of knowledge about being on land, and then went back into the ocean.
I don't like this anymore. I'm gonna go back. And just
like I can take this skill set.
Because they still breathe air. That's the crazy part about it. They can hold their breath for a very long time, but they still breathe air. They're still considered mammals, which is like wild, right? Whales
they
are
drink
mammals?
Fresh water. This is the part that blows my mind about manatees. They have to have fresh water. That's why if you're like in Florida and you're cleaning your boat and leave your hose running, you'll turn around and a manatee will be laying on its back sucking it.
They are warm-blooded and breathe air. Is like, wow, that's crazy, man. That this such a big creature still needs to. It's not a fish. It's not a fish.
It's not a fish.
Wow.
And it's smarter than us. So the idea that it's like, and it's in the ocean. We're on a water planet. Way more water than there is land. And look at the surface of land. It's only one level. Look at how many levels there are to water.
Yeah, exactly. How you're saying the Mariana Trench, which James Cameron, JC, was one of the few ones to go there too. I mean, he's it's almost like an initiation. Only a select few are able to go down to those depths, and he is one of them. So definitely, and there's a quote by him that he talks about how the bottom of the ocean, on these expeditions, he feels like he's almost like space travel. So
Which
very.
some people say NASA was what? The National Aquatics. And that's what it started out as, an ocean agency, NASA.
Really?
Yeah.
No, no way.
Yeah, it started out going deep into the ocean first. And if you look at like two or three of the guys that were on that submarine that sank, they were all involved in aeronautics, which if you really look into aeronautics, it's also submersibles. It's both of them.
CSAT, the first civilian oceanographic satellite in 1978. CSAT, designed by NASA, was the first Earth orbiting satellite to remote sensing of the Earth's ocean. So it's a satellite.
Deeper than that. It's like before, maybe even paperclip.
Wow, yeah, and I've never heard that before. That's crazy though. That I think that the answer is at the bottom of our oceans. I think it's what they show like in all these movies, like Pacific Rim and Godzilla. You know, I remember growing up watching the Godzilla fight. The one where it was like a suit and he'd fight an alien, or like all these different creatures. I remember that. I tried putting it on for my son the other day. And he wasn't having it. Like it's like from like the 70s or something like that. It's really corny, but I mean,
I've been telling people to watch the old Japanese Godzilla to try to explain to them how the same as the moon landing, when they're like, why would they want to do that? Because they wanted to scare everyone in the world to think they had a missile that went to their state country. If I could show you that I could shoot a missile to the moon, then you would think I could shoot a missile to your country. So this was like a Cold War kind of going on top of us. It was an information war going on top of us without us knowing it, calling it progress the whole time. Like, that's what I think a lot of even the miniatures in this, that's how they showed us that they had bombs big enough to look at how strong this bomb is. They just used miniatures, but we don't have miniatures anymore. We only have CGI. Yeah, that's it. There's just men in suits and then tiny little houses.
yeah.
And they're like, this is Oppenheimer. And that's just what I think of everything in the Oppenheimer video that we see and that they used to scare people with was all just miniatures.
Propaganda.
But I think it's totally in the ocean. Like even Mars is sea. It's sea. It's SEA. It means the ocean. So it almost makes me think something about them. They can't get into the ocean. Like there is a separation. I know everyone's like, no, you're the representation of everything. There's no such thing as evil. There's just light and dark and blah, blah, blah. I think there's that. And then there's something that decided, there's something that decided to separate itself from that can no longer create. Once you separate yourself from the darkness, light, yin, yang, whatever woo-woo thing you want to call it, once you decide to take in enough rituals and do enough things and let walk-ins happen enough, now your flesh becomes their flesh. They don't have free will in this realm without flesh. So I think they believe that they can put their energy into AI and they won't need to do it to our flesh so much anymore. And that's why they can eventually kill us off. If they can have a walking computer that they can put enough flesh in that they can drive it, then they don't necessarily need to corrupt. They don't need a Hillary Clinton.
Oh, that's my cosmic fleshlight theory, where we are just cosmic fleshlights for these entities to experience reality, and so that's why we're constantly being fucked with, and right, so that they're able to feel what it feels like to be human. We're just vessels for these things. So, Chaney, you have any closing thoughts?
Oh my gosh, I know. I'm like, I feel like it was just all a sporadic conversation that I just tipped the ice.
It needed to happen though, because it's been a minute since you and I got together.
Be a few more.
And we didn't talk about anything that I had prepared originally, so we're gonna have to get back together and talk about that for the next one that we do. So I think it's fine.
Yeah. As many times as you want to hang out, I'm always down. This is kind of like the first. Let's see. I hung out with Lindsay from Rogue Ways of recent, and then this is like kind of a second real podcast I've done since I've been back at it. So
the second podcast done by Clone Chaney. So we're happy to have you here. And you're always welcome. around these
Perfect.
parts.
Perfect. I loved it. It's
Do you
always
wanna
fun.
leave the people with anything else before we head out?
Look, I hear a lot of people out there right now talking about XRP and Ripple and how they're all excited. Just look into that. I want people to look into the Bank of International Settlements. I want them to look into Switzerland and the mirror image of the Swiss bank, which would be the bank. And I think it's all very similar channels. And that's the stuff I'm into right now. So maybe I'll have a whole bunch of St. George stuff to add to the bank Swiss thing. But, it's our Florida. We got to stay under the foot of King George all the time. St. George.
And where can people find you, Chaney?
ProjectChaney.com. And I will try to put all my other links on there. I'm hanging out on Twitter and Telegram and Instagram.
Oh, we know. I see you arguing with people on there and commenting back and forth.
I've been so nice since I lost my account. Since free speech Elon Musk took over and I lost my account. I've been so nice because I only have one more chance at a Twitter and they won't let me have another one.
Yikes.
The tech overlords. It's the same thing on Instagram. I'm only allowed to have what I have.
It's the same thing on all platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that garbage. So that's why it's important. Sub to the RSS feed. It's always there. You can always tap into it as long as you have a podcasting 2.0 app. They can deplatform us, but they can't censor us. So if you're listening to this on something that's not the RSS feed, make sure to go subscribe on whatever. Podcast Addict is a good one, but any podcasting 2.0 app, that's why it's so important. Because podcasts right now, it's the wild, wild west. They can deplatform you, but they can't take the RSS feed away. So make sure to follow Chaney, projectchaney.com. Make sure to follow me, tjojp.com. Share this show, like, comment, subscribe, whatever, all that stuff. And appreciate y'all. Catch you on the next one.